I gotta go. All right, welcome everyone. It's 6:30 p.m. I'd like to call to order the Fenton Township Board meeting on this 20th day of February, 2024. I'd ask everyone to please stand for the opening prayer and the Pledge of Allegiance. Trustee Gopal, will you lead us, please?
Yes, sir, thank you. Heavenly Father, we come to you tonight asking for your guidance, your wisdom, and your support as we begin this meeting. Help us engage in meaningful discussion, allow us to grow closer as a community, and nurture the bonds of said community. We ask for peace in the warring countries. Bless the sick, the injured, and those who have passed as we pray for an end to the conflicts that exist today. And as always, we ask these in your most holy name. Amen.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
As always, Mark, I appreciate.
Recording in progress.
You want me to do it again?
Again, Mark. Again, Mark, thanks, I appreciate it. All right, Clerk Crew, will you please call the roll?
Lorraine,
Present.
Reed,
Here.
Kotrick,
Here.
Kruger's present, Kessler,
Here.
Gopal,
Yeah, here.
Tucker.
Present.
You have a full board present.
Thanks, Bob. All right, I'd like to note for the record that Township Attorney Jack Belzer, our Operations Manager Tom Broker, Fire Chief Ryan Volz, and Zoning Administrator Mike Deem are also present. And additionally, the following township officials are presently via Zoom, our township engineers, Alan and Melissa Lawrence. Tom, will you detail the procedures for those attending tonight's virtual meeting?
Yes, to members of the public attending tonight's meeting in person or via Zoom, please be advised the meeting is being recorded to be shown on Public Access TV, Spectrum Channel 191. Recorded meetings are also posted on the Fenton Area Community Television YouTube channel. For those attending via Zoom, we ask that you keep your microphone muted until we reach portions of the meeting where public comment is allowed. For tonight's meeting, there are no public hearings, therefore all public comment will be taken near the end of the meeting. Meeting materials are available for download on the Township's website at fentontownship.org.
Thanks, Tom. All right, moving on to the first business in order is the approval of the agenda. Are there any requests to amend tonight's agenda? Hearing none, a motion is in order to approve the agenda as presented.
So moved.
Support.
All right, motion's been moved and seconded. Any further discussion? Hearing none, Clerk Krug, will you please call the roll?
I vote yes. Kotrick,
Yes.
Kessler,
Yes.
Reed,
Yes.
Gopal,
Yes.
Tucker,
Yes.
Lorraine.
Yes.
Motion passes.
All right, agenda stands approved as presented. Next business order is meeting minutes. Included in the packet are the meeting minutes for the February 6th regular meeting. Are there any corrections or requested revisions to those meeting minutes? Hearing none, the meeting minutes stand approved as presented. Moving on to expenditures, are there any questions from the board regarding any of the invoices?
I did have a question, only because my insurance bills are due on March 1st. I've done the math on them. I see our insurance bills are up for payment. I was getting 25 and 30% increases. Did we have any such of an increase, or is it
Which insurance are we talking about?
the Michigan Municipal?
Oh, our property and liability insurance went up, I think 3%. It was December 1 was our renewal date.
Oh, all right.
So it was done.
Well, I was curious as to know whether that's translating to, and if you call your insurance folks, they'll just tell you, wham, wham, everybody's raised the rates.
Yeah.
There were hurricanes and car crashes, I guess.
Well, because we're in a municipal insurance pool, it might protect us a little bit from that.
Well, that's the problem, though. We're pooled with all the people down in Florida. That's why we're getting these things. So this is a pool we just as soon not swim in. But
We're in a Michigan pool, so
Yeah.
it probably helps.
That's probably, that did help. All right, any other questions or concerns? All right, motion is in order to approve the expenditures totaling $1,032,145.57 for payment.
Is that the right amount?
Mm-hmm.
I thought it was like
1,032,145.57.
thought it was like 0.4. 1.4.
We get the wrong number in there?
I don't know. This is memory from earlier today, so it's more reliable than some, but still not reliable.
382.
Yeah. It's not his number.
Did you transpose the number?
Yeah, it's 1382, I apologize.
All right, $1,382,145.57 for payment.
So moved.
Support.
All right, motion's been moved and seconded. Any further discussion? Clerk Krug, will you please call the roll?
Reed,
Yes.
Gopel,
Yes.
Tucker,
Yes.
Kessler,
Yes.
Lorraine.
Yes.
I vote yes. Patrick,
Yes.
motion passes.
All right, expenditures stand approved as presented, and Tom, you're in trouble. Just kidding.
Don't worry, it's only
But don't worry
$300,000.
about
It's only $300,000.
It's only $300,000 of trouble.
All right, next business orders, public hearings. Tonight we have none. Moving on to reports. Are there any committee reports to be made to the board this evening? Hearing none, we'll move on to communications. None. Adoption of ordinances. This is rezoning number R23-004. Donna Nicole Stilson, parcel number 06-17-200-039, address of 13252 Ripley Road. This is a conditional rezoning from R3 to Ag. This is the second reading and vote on the adoption. Zoning Administrator Deem is here. Can you kind of just do a 30,000?
Yeah, quick summary, we talked about this at the last meeting. As you recall, that they're requesting a conditional rezoning from R3 to Ag to allow for the keeping of miniature horses. When the Planning Commission did their review, they found that the conditions associated with the rezoning were consistent with the existing development of the area, with agricultural and rural estate development further adjacent to the parcel in the back, and additional agricultural property to the southeast. John was there. I think based on the last meeting, that the board would be interested in some of your comments regarding the review.
Yes, Treasurer Trucker.
So I applaud Jack Belzer because he's singing the song that I've been beating down your throats for decades now. I don't argue with him, okay? I agree with him to the point of what he's saying, you know, what he's telling you is correct. That's what I preach at you. I voted for this. And I think one of you called me out on it, Mr. Gopel.
Just one of you.
Just one of us. And rightfully so. But here's what entered my thought process. This originally came to us as a straight rezoned ag. And I said, that dog won't hunt, sing the verse Jack, okay? So then they came back with, you know, the restriction that the only ag activity on the site, right now there are 2 of these miniature ponies. And right now it reads limitation of 4. The height has been limited to 38 inches. I do know dogs that are bigger than 38 inches. So despite it conflicting with my mantra, my practical real world side said 2 things to me. One, what is the difference between 4 miniature horses and 4 St. Bernards? Okay, because you wouldn't need a permit to have 4 St. Bernards on this property. I guess actually 3 things. Second thing is if you look behind our deputy's head back there on the map, if you look at this property, there's nothing there. There's a golf course to the south. The biggest party that would have an objection to this is the party that sold these folks the property, and it wraps around as an L behind them. And there's a bunch of vacant land behind that, all of whom got notice if they were in 300 feet, none of whom appeared at the meeting to have any problem with it. The third thing is I also read the Times on a regular basis, and I didn't want to be the schmuck that was taking away therapy animals. I don't want to call it a legal technicality because what Jack is saying is 100% right. You know, it's not, it says medium density residential and ag is in the opposite direction. But again, if you take it back and look at the only ag being permitted is these 4 miniature horses, and tell me how it's different than 4 dogs that can be that big or bigger. That's why I deviated from my mantra.
Would it
And
make
y'all can do what you feel comfortable with.
Welcome to the dark side, John.
would it make a difference if they classified these as therapy animals?
It doesn't to me, I mean, well, if.
I was looking
the-
legally at the.
So,
Yeah, no.
from the zoning ordinance standpoint, right, they don't meet the definition clearly as a domesticated animal, right? So they have to fit into a different category.
Okay.
And
And I don't think they're therapy dogs for the doctor. I think she offers them to the public,
Right.
you know, for therapy. So, you know, that's why, Bob, I don't think that makes a whole lot of
Okay.
difference
Good,
to
thank
me.
you.
Yeah.
I know there was talk last time about possibly doing a variance, but that'd be a use variance, and use variances aren't allowed, right? So that's why the rezoning was the option that the applicant chose and is presented to you guys tonight.
One
Thanks,
other
Mike.
thing. After last meeting, literally, after the meeting, I went home and opened My City magazine.
Thank you.
Story about that.
I'll
and
give
about
you the
3 page
50 bucks
story
later.
and that
Yeah.
For the exact same thing, also,
Yeah.
same lady.
Well, and my motions and sympathy shouldn't come into play, but I was swayed by the articles in the Times and Vince's magazine, you know, it just.
And I think from the planning commission perspective, it was the fact that there was conditions on there that although we're calling it agriculture, it's really not. There's not a good way to classify a miniature horse without creating even more problems. And,
We
you know,
create a miniature horse district.
Right,
Yeah,
you know,
put it in the
and-
master plan.
And so, you know, ordinances can't address every situation, right? And there are mechanisms in an ordinance to kind of deal with that. One is conditional rezoning, right? The state gives us the right to review those requests and make an informed decision on the information that's provided.
Any other questions for Mike or for John?
I wanted to tell Mike why I'm smiling. My youngest daughter wants to get a miniature cow.
They make such things?
Oh, yeah?
Not called calves.
No.
I was just gonna say,
These
you're
are-
talking about a calf?
No.
Sooner.
There's a small version of a cow? A pygmy cow?
Yeah,
Really?
they have the big long horns on some of them.
Oh my,
Mike, we gotta create a new district.
Wow.
Well, look,
miniature animals.
Miniature
it is
animal
on,
district.
it's on the planning commission's work plan to review the keeping of animals after we get the more important,
Yes,
zoning
we
and,
got a very busy agenda the
you know,
next
things
couple of
done,
months.
so.
So I have a question. Did any of the neighbors come forward at the planning commission meetings?
Not a
or-
peep,
No one?
not a
Okay.
peep.
There was someone there in favor, but they weren't a neighbor.
Just another example of what a great team we have here at the township. Mike, I have the utmost confidence in you. I always look to my left in cases like
Kessler.
this. And I am also like John in the future, just so everybody knows, I'll be on record that if it goes against the new master plan, I will probably be a no vote. But I am going, you know, so anyway, that's my thoughts. Any other questions? Hearing none, okay, I need a motion to adopt an amendment to zoning ordinance number 594 to conditionally rezone parcel number 06-17-200-039 from R3 to Ag as presented.
With conditions.
Motion's been moved and seconded. Any further discussion? Hearing none, Clerk Krug, will you please call the roll?
Yes. Kessler,
Yes.
I vote yes. Reed,
Yes.
Lorraine,
Yes.
Cottrell,
Yes.
Tucker,
Yes.
Gopel.
Yes.
Motion passes.
Thanks, Bob. All right, moving on to next business in order, which is unfinished business. This is resolution number 2024-04, supporting DNR Canadian Goose Egg and Nest Destruction Program, Lake Fenton. Also, resolution number 2024-05, supporting DNR Mute Swan Egg and Nest Destruction Program, again, Lake Fenton. We had this come in front of the board last meeting. We had some questions that we needed answers for, so with the help of Scott, our detective, he gave me the number to John Darling, and he is a biologist from the DNR, if you don't mind coming up.
Oh,
And I
wow.
think Jim Root is also,
He was, but.
yeah.
Here.
He's right there.
He's frozen.
Oh,
He's
yeah,
on- he's on
there
the
he
zone.
is.
Oh, there he.
Oh, he's smiling. Oh, he's okay. He's okay.
All right, sorry about that.
Thought he had a
You were
stroke for a
right
minute.
behind John. So I'm going to open it up for questions from the board, and we have, like I said, an expert biologist from the DNR, and John Darling, and we also have Jim Root. So, board, do you have any questions?
What do you got for statistics on effectiveness?
So effectiveness always depends on what your goal is. So with our two separate programs there, with goose nest destruction, you know, what you're mostly gonna be targeting is making sure you don't have that huge influx of goslings during the summer. One of the side, you know, benefits that may also come with that is triggering a molt migration where those nesting pairs will also leave and they'll fly north, they'll molt somewhere else instead of staying there for the summer. That's less likely to happen, you know, obviously than the immediate result you're getting destroying the nest, but is a possibility. So your immediate gain is not having that influx of goslings. The mute swan program is a little bit different in that we're trying to keep those mute swan numbers down. They're considered an invasive species by the state of Michigan. You know, we'd like to see them all removed at some point. In a lot of instances, nest destruction is the way to do that. So a little bit different programmatic goals there. You know, I think you guys have had success with the nest destruction program, keeping those gosling numbers down. But in my experience, getting those adults to leave is tougher.
John, when you and I had a conversation, I think it was Friday?
Yep.
You had said that really unless it's perfectly timed, just because I want the board to be informed, that it really doesn't work on reducing the population of the geese that are
Yeah,
here.
so-
I mean, so it really doesn't help in the sense, and I'll let you explain
Yeah,
it.
well, what Vince and I had discussed was that the egg and nest destruction for geese specifically, it's harder to get those adults to leave. Geese are pretty intelligent birds. Once they get past 2, 3, 4 years old, they have an established system. They know where they're going. They move from safe place to safe place, and they're going to live a long time. They're willing to accept some significant level of risk to their nest to protect themselves once they've kind of got a system worked out. So the nest destruction program can sometimes get those adults to leave, but it's very rarely going to result in like a permanent reduction of adult birds on the area. You know, from our perspective, the best tool to use to reduce adult birds is hunting either directly on the area or in the surrounding areas. That might be difficult to implement here, you know, because Lake Fenton is so developed, but if there was anywhere in the surrounding area that could be open to hunting where those birds are going to feed or something like that, there could be some gains there. We have a special late season that just wrapped up. It goes until about the middle of February. And through our banding data, bands being, you know, identification bands we put on birds during the summer, they fly away. We learn something from those birds when they get harvested by a hunter later. The late season is very effective at targeting local geese. So geese that had a nest in that area, they may have left, they avoided hunting pressure all year. They're trying to be the first ones back to what they think is a safe nesting area in the spring, and then they get harvested by hunters in February. So in terms of reducing adult numbers, that's really the best tool we have, you know, outside of encouraging hazing, things like that. Nest destruction can have some benefits, but it's pretty minor.
Another question I think that's on the minds of a lot of people is E. coli.
Yep.
And again, we have not just geese and swans, but we have 400 or 500 seagulls that come here every night of if that lake is thawed, they're here.
Sure.
So if we, and we got these from Jim, from the Lake Fenton Property Owners Association. In 2021, we had 9 nests, 45 eggs. In 2022, 12 nests, 73 eggs. 2023, 14 nests and 76 eggs. So 14 nests, maximum of 28 birds, right? It'd be a pair. Is that gonna make a difference in the size of the Lake Fenton as far as E. coli? I mean, maybe it may be spot specific. If you have, you know, all 20 of those geese sitting on this beach, but on a lake this size, is it gonna make any difference?
Yeah, I would have very little E. coli concerns from those adults. I would have increased E. coli concerns if all of those nests had goslings and then more birds came back the following year. So, you know, the nest destruction program is at least keeping goslings that were hatched, raised on that lake from knowing it's a safe place coming back the next year, 2 years later when they're actually having a nest. As far as the handful of adults that are left, 14 pairs maximum, maybe you have a couple molt migrants that are hanging around, 30, 40 geese that are on the lake, I'd have very little concern of E. coli. Now, I'm not a water quality expert, I'm a duck expert, but on a lake this size, I'd have very little concern, especially knowing that you have gulls and other birds that are coming into the area. What you're trying to avoid is that big influx of goslings during the summer where all of a sudden you went from having, 25 grass recyclers to having 200 grass recyclers on the lake. That's where you might have more of an issue.
I was wondering, so there's a little bit of a question we had about, so if goslings, let's say we didn't have the program, we have goslings, are they likely to come back to the same lake, or do they generally just stay in the same area? Where I can picture like an exponential curve or something if all the goslings come back
Yep.
to the same lake each year.
It's a yes and no. So they don't typically nest in their very first year of adulthood. Usually it's their second
Right.
year. But they know that that lake was a safe place. They're probably going to come back to that same lake the following spring. If they get a couple years of being comfortable there, the odds of them setting up shop when they do have a nest is going to go up. So I don't know if I'd call it exponential, but you're definitely going to see a significant increase over time.
So some
Yep.
of them might come back to the same lake, others might find some area around here
With some restrictions, because they're also going to be limited on how many places there actually are. How
Right.
many, there's only so many people around the lake that are going to tolerate having them nest, next to their dock or whatever without chasing them off. So just at some point, you're going to reach a carrying capacity, but there will probably be some level of increase if they just keep hatching.
Okay. And then do we know, does it just depend on the people, I guess, or do we know about what the carrying capacity, do we know if it's a bunch higher than the amount we have currently in the 14 pairs, or is it?
Again, I think here you'd be limited by tolerance more
Yeah.
than, say, the lake itself or
Okay.
the habitat. Geese are very well adapted at this point to living on mowed grass and beachfront. So without knowing what the dynamics are of the people on the lake, I can't really say what that number would be.
Okay.
But a lake this size, if everybody left them alone, could hold a lot of geese.
Okay.
Yep.
And then with the mute swans, I think you mentioned they're invasive. Do we know what non-invasive species they threaten?
Yeah, so mute swans directly compete with most native waterfowl at certain times. So they might go 11 months of the year without bothering any other ducks, geese, or native swans. Our native swans being tundra swans that don't nest here, trumpeter swans that are in very, very low numbers but are starting to nest in more areas. But during their active nesting season, mute swans can be very defensive, very protective, very territorial. So it can be hard to look at from a ecosystem perspective because you don't always see that interaction. And on a lake this size, they're probably going to end up in slightly different situations. Again, the human element coming into play. Mute swans don't typically get up on lawns and up on docks and create as much of a fecal mess as geese do, so you might have some different level of tolerance between people, where mute swans could find a spot where people tolerate them but not the geese, and it might take a long time before they actually have a negative interaction with, say, native wildlife here. In other places of the state, it's much more dramatic.
Thank you.
Is there a idea, if, let's say, a nesting pair have 5 goslings, or I think the swans usually only have, I've seen 2 or 3. What is the death rate of goslings and cygnets?
With almost all waterfowl, obviously their highest mortality rate is in their juvenile stage before they
Right.
can fly. In a natural environment, let's say you have a family group of 8 to 10 goslings hatch, I would expect somewhere 2 to 5 would probably reach flight stage.
Okay.
Whether they survive that fall is a whole nother story, but
Yeah.
that
I
would be
was-
kind of normal, is to see 2 to 5 out of that group would make it to flight stage as geese. Swans typically have somewhere between 4 and 6 cygnets, 4 to 6 eggs, sometimes a little less, but they do have some predators in the cygnet stage. I've seen snapping turtles take a lot of them, fish will take some of them, some birds of prey. So cygnets drop off really quickly right at the beginning, and then there's very little predation on them after that. So that's where you often see that 2, 3, 4 cygnets with 2 adults because they just have a higher level of survival.
Thank you.
Welcome.
This may sound like a stupid question, so I'll try not to make it sound stupid. But these programs are offered through the DNR. Are they advocated by the DNR or simply offered?
The mute swan program, I would say, is advocated by us because there are situations where we can't go in and remove swans that, you know, are problematic either to wildlife or to people. We work cooperatively with the U.S. Department of Agriculture's Wildlife Services to remove swans where we can. So in instances when we can't, we do encourage the nest destruction because it helps the surrounding area out. The goose nest and egg destruction program is evolving. I would tentatively say that it's endorsed or encouraged at this point because there are situations where hunting isn't an option, where our normal tools are kind of limited. Geese are a migratory bird managed by the feds, the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service. So we have expectations we need to meet at the federal level. We can't just, you know, hand out permits to everybody the same way we can with other species and say, you have a problem with a turkey, here's a permit to remove that turkey. You have a problem with a deer, here's a permit to remove that deer. It's a little bit more difficult with geese. So knowing that we have some situations where our usual tools are a little limited, then the nest and egg destruction is probably our best option. Our, you know, best case scenario always is going to be encouraging cohabitation, trying to encourage people to find ways to either, you know, make it tolerable to have those birds around, or make the situation one where geese don't want to be there in the first place. We don't want to take those birds out of season if we can avoid it. We don't want to take those nest and eggs out of season, or, you know, it's not legal to harvest nest and eggs normally. But knowing that in reality that's not always an option.
Thank you. You made the question sound not stupid, so.
It wasn't a stupid question. Any other questions? Any comments?
Yeah, so, just so I understand, so with the geese, if you don't destroy the nest, over a period of time, they'll increase the number of geese around?
I would expect them to, yes. Yep. Without knowing what that number is going to be, I would expect it to increase.
My opinion is the Lake Fenton Property Owners Association board decided that this is the best option. I've been blessed to live on this lake. I'll just give you my opinion. Over 3 decades. I don't have any young children at home, but I love watching the waterfowl through the season. I love watching the little ones. It's part of living on a lake. I know it comes with excrement, but I bought the property on the lake, so you know it comes with waterfowl and excrement. So to me, it's just part of lake living, and I love it. But again, I understand people that don't want to deal with that on their docks. But my biggest concern is E. coli, and you answered my question. And we can throw all kinds of numbers out, but I think this board should really be concerned with the E. coli and how it poses a risk to the township and its residents because there's an open beach out there. And what you're telling me is that it doesn't really matter which way we go with this because of the number of nests we're talking about isn't going to make a difference on this lake whether we get E. coli or not get E. coli. So
yeah,
that's just my opinion.
I would just say with the caveat that over time that may change. Right now,
correct.
10, 15 nests, probably not a big deal. I would personally probably encourage the lake to, if you don't, to have some sort of formal monitoring program, especially as you're considering changes like this, just so you can look and see. Let's say you take a year off of doing nests, and the next year you do have a slight spike. At least then you have a connection to connection instead of just guessing in the dark. At the risk of a cliche, I would say that with excrement comes excitement. Not everybody gets to see some of the stuff that goes on a lake. So we, like I said, we would like to see people learn to live in these situations as best we can. There are ways to just drive geese off instead of always just destroying the nest. But I think it's a special opportunity for a lot of people to see something that most people don't get to see. So finding that balance point is tricky.
John, you've been great. You really have. Any other questions?
I'm stunned that he's here. Thank you for coming.
Oh, well, you're welcome.
Yes, I
I saw
actually,
you sitting there, I just never connected the dots. It's like, oh, wow,
we
that's
had a
pretty awesome.
conversation on Friday, and he agreed that he would come down himself, or if that wasn't possible, he would send somebody, so I really do appreciate it. You have done a big service to this board, and to the residents.
It was my pleasure. I'm glad to help. As I told some of you earlier when we were chit-chatting, we are backfilling the position I'm acting in right now, so I will be sure to hook Kara up with you and Scott contact-wise, just so we can kind of hand this off.
That would be great.
And then if you guys do decide to pursue permitting, I'll probably work with you on that until she's up to speed and ready to go, but we'll be there to help.
Thank you very much, John.
All right, welcome.
Thank you.
All right, any other questions or comments from the board?
Did we have numbers on the mute swan part? I've got a clear picture now of the number of geese, but I'm not sure, do we know how many?
Well, we don't know. I don't think we know how many are geese
Apple.
and how many are swans that are destroyed.
Well, no, we know the
Maybe-
geese, but I think he's saying how many of the.
Yeah, how many mute swans?
I've
have
only
we-
seen like 4 nests on the lake for
Okay.
swans. That's just, but I'm not out there every day. There could be,
We must have them on Panema though.
Well, yeah, I
With
mean,
the weather that it's been open water. And I wanna say 2 weeks ago, I counted 36 swans.
Okay.
that's more than we have here.
I know, it's a lot of swans.
I counted 40 out here one time last year.
Yeah.
on Lake Fenton.
Well,
Swans?
this was on Tupper, mind you. I'm looking out my window on Tupper, it's not a big body of water. There was 36 of them in the open water, and there was a lot of open water. It wasn't like there's only one spot there, so they're nesting somewhere.
Well, we're on Lake Fenton. We'll take your swans. You take our seagulls.
Yeah, I got
Oh, I like
seagulls
that.
too. I got
I mean,
seagulls too.
if you look at that, no pun, as the bird flies, I mean, the difference between,
Right.
from Lake Fenton, you're
Nothing.
crossing the highway and you're in a whole nother
Yeah.
system,
Yeah.
which is a sportsman's lake,
Yeah.
which isn't
Which,
fully developed.
yeah, but you
which is
can't
why
shoot the
you're going to
swans.
get
Yeah.
a lot of the, you push them off Lake Fenton, they're gonna go 1/8 of a mile in the air over there, and now they're on Lake Fenton.
And that's all they're gonna do.
Which has channels, which are, there's a lot of nesting going on in those channels.
Well, just that acreage
also a
that we
high-
own is a prime nesting area.
Yeah.
We own a bunch of acres over there. That's probably got a ton of them.
I never thought we'd have a problem here because it's so congested, not only with boat traffic and, motorized, but also, the distances between homes and everything else,
I guess I can address some of the mute swan numbers questions a little bit better. First, my experience has been that there's a very reliable 3-year life cycle with mute swans. Year 1, everybody thinks they're beautiful and great. Year 2, there start to be a couple issues, maybe a couple red flags where, maybe a swan got aggressive with a dog. And by year 3 is when you typically start seeing those problems with them getting aggressive with, say, jet skis or people, things like that. So it's important in year 1, if there are swans on the lake and you don't remove the swans, that people are not too submissive with them. Birds are very, very responsive to body language and how people interact with them, how other animals interact with them. So if you can stay kind of aggressive with them and just remind them that you're not in charge in those first couple years, it can go a long ways if your intention is not to remove them. If there is a nearby body of water, I just heard you say that there's a sportsman's lake nearby that is a little more accessible. And we know that at certain times of year, they say leave here and go over there. That would be an opportunity for us to work with USDA to potentially remove a lot of those birds much more quietly than if it were on Lake Fenton, and potentially reduce a lot of the issues that are here without it being, as much of an issue. So that's just something to keep kind of in your back pocket as you're talking about this, is if there is a nearby opportunity, we can still work with our federal partners to get some of those things done without it necessarily having to be right here. We just kind of need to know that that's going on, and they're always looking for those opportunities because they're pretty opportunistic.
Just a question to stack on that. Since they're both state lakes, is there any, do you guys, is it totally Lake Association complaint driven, or do you guys actually go out to your lakes and then do some of this nest removal without the blessing of the municipalities?
We very, very rarely will directly do any nest removals ourselves. There are some instances where our federal partners will do some nest destruction, like in situations where firearm discharge isn't legal or isn't safe, just to address some problems, they'll do that. But very rarely are we just going out and doing those things. When our federal partners are removing swans for us, it's situations that are, planned. We know there's birds there. We've got a system in place to get rid of them.
Okay.
But we do not have the ability to roll in black-booted and remove nests or birds off of people's lakes without anybody knowing what's going on. We will always,
One more
be superseded.
question, just because you're the duck expert. Stacking on Bob's, it was my question too. So we removed, 72 eggs were removed last year. So in your opinion, what would be the mortality of the 72? I just want an actual 50% or 20%. I mean, 72 are removed. If we didn't remove them manually, what would the mortality of that 72 be in your opinion, that made it?
Given this situation, I'd say probably 40 to 60% would survive. There's probably a little bit lower predation here from, say, mink.
Sure. On this lake?
Yeah, on this lake.
Yeah.
So mink and raccoons, there might be a little less nest destruction than in a normal situation, just because you probably keep those predations down a little bit more. But they're still going to have predation from birds and fish primarily. So I would expect it's probably going to be a little higher than, say, a normal situation, but it's still going to be probably pretty high.
All right, any other questions from the board? Again, thank you, sir.
Okay.
Really
Thank you for
appreciate
helping.
it.
Thank you.
All right. Resolution number 2024-04. Clerk Krug, will you please present the resolution?
Supports the application of the Lake Fenton Property Owners Association to participate in the MDNR Goose, Egg, and Nest Destruction Program for the year 2024 through 2028. Resolves that the Charter Township of Fenton shall not incur any cost for Lake Fenton participation in this program. I'll move the resolution.
Support.
All right, motion's been moved and seconded. Any further discussion? Hearing none, Clerk Krug, will you please call the roll?
Yes. Contract.
No.
Kessler.
Yes.
Gopel.
No.
Tucker.
Yes.
Reed.
Yes.
Lorraine.
Yes.
And I vote no. The resolution passes 4-3.
That doesn't happen very often.
No, and it was everyone here was very educated, and actually I thought very hard.
Well, it's tough call.
Yeah, I love looking at them. It's part of my summer.
Well, they're not gonna go away, neither is the excrement. Doesn't matter what you do.
No, it's not.
It's just part, as you say, it's part of living on a
It's
lake.
part of living on the lake.
I will say, if you let the grass grow close to the lake, by that I mean a couple feet tall, just 2 feet wide,
Yeah.
2 feet, it'll keep them off. They won't cut through there because they're worried about predators. It's pretty effective if you're worried about them on your lawns.
And you can also put
String.
nylon string or monofilament string that will scare them off because their wings get caught.
They will come up on your neighbors who don't do what you're doing. But
All right, moving on to resolution number 2024-05. Clerk Krug, will you please present the resolution?
Yes. Supports the application of the Lake Fenton Property Owners Association to participate in the MDNR Mute Swan Nest and Egg Destruction Program for the years 2024 through 2028. Resolves that the Charter Township of Fenton shall not incur any cost of Lake Fenton's participation in this program. I will move the resolution.
second.
All right, motion's been moved and seconded. Any further discussion? Hearing none, Clerk Krug, will you please call the roll?
Gopel.
No.
Tucker.
Yes.
Lorraine.
Yes.
Cottrell.
No.
Reed.
Yes.
I vote no. No pressure on you, Rob.
Yes.
Resolution passes.
All right.
twice in a row. I didn't think that would happen in the Swan. I thought that would be non-controversial, but that's what I get for thinking, so.
I thought the same thing.
Thanks for educating me, y'all.
Thank you so much, John.
I think there was only one no vote last year, or 5 years ago, and that was our clerk. So I think being an educated board, having you come down, changed, with educated minds, changed a vote. So again, I thank you.
Yeah, and I would, you know, as always, we're here to help. You know, we're public servants, we work in public trust, so.
I'm gonna be reaching out to you.
Contact and keep us updated on how things are going.
All right, I'm gonna talk to you about maybe units of measurement and how we can, I'll talk to you later. All right, moving on to the next business order is new business. This is Fenton Township Master Plan. This is to approve the draft plan for period review. We have our zoning administrator, Mike Dean, will review.
We're approving the plan for distribution. We're not approving the plan at all, right? So, under the state law, we have to put the plan out there for a minimum of 63 days where we can elicit public comment. After that 63-day window, the planning commission holds a public hearing and takes any additional comments that people may have. After that public hearing is held, the planning commission may make a recommendation to the township board, or approve the plan and make a recommendation to the board. There's still opportunities to make amendments to the master plan, changes to it, depending on the public input that we get. The biggest change, right, focuses really along Silver Lake Road, with the state pathway going through there, availability of water and sewer. The existing zoning and future land use in area is probably not adequate, with it being adjacent to the airport and the assisted living facility there, having an area for high-density residential, to utilize the services that are available, the pathways available, and the access to nearby parks and the US 23. So that's one of the changes in there. On the north side of Silver Lake Road, just next to DPW, there's some vacant land that's been identified from residential to community commercial. So the thought was some sort of low-intense commercial development. We've had a lot of people inquire about things that they can do there, and it's never about residential because it backs up to the railroad. And so, giving them an opportunity to at least make an application to see, what could go in there. In addition to that, the plan includes an urban service boundary, right, to try and prevent the sprawl as we get the ability to extend utilities. It's important that we identify areas in the township that we want to protect the natural beauty and agricultural aspects of the township. So by having that urban service boundary in there, it would dissuade the continuing extension of water and sewer by mandate. A couple other properties have popped up lately that there may be some comments that we get during the public comment period, but we're not quite there. But at this point, we have the draft plan, right? It's been updated with all the new census data. It's taken all our public input meetings that we've had, which we've had pretty good response and people showing up to the meetings. So we're now at the point where we need to get the plan out to the public, get more comment, and keep the ball rolling. So we would need a motion authorizing the distribution of the master plan for that 63-day window. We'd be setting the meeting date, and that's not for you guys to know, but just so you know, would be the May 9th Planning Commission meeting, because of when the dates fall, that's the first Planning Commission meeting after the 63 days.
Thanks, Mike. Treasurer Tucker, do you have any additional comments from the Planning
The
Commission?
only thing, I thought we removed the water from the urban services district, so it's just a sewer.
Well, so the district is still in there, right?
Right, the district is, but it
Right.
doesn't restrict water. You were talking about both water and sewer.
Well, so,
Did we not do that, or?
no, you're correct.
Okay.
I think I probably put it too broadly, but it's more,
He told you 30,000 feet.
yeah, it's a little bit more, yeah, John is correct. It's more nuanced than just having the service boundary, but when we get to that point, we will definitely be
The thought
going
was
over
we
it.
didn't want to keep water from any place that's got an arsenic problem, whether it's in the service district or outside of it or inside of it. So that was the thought process.
Yeah, so the thought process is make it available, but not make it required.
Yeah.
Anything else, John, that you have from the
No,
Planning Commission?
I don't think typically in the past, we haven't gotten a lot of feedback? There's, I think, one municipality that usually sends.
Oh,
comments,
yeah,
so-
I think from the public we'll get some feedback, especially just changes to Silver Lake Road, right?
Yeah.
So,
Yeah. But Silver Lake Road makes sense if you think about in the context, county primary road, it's got commercial development already, it's got access to a freeway. You know, to the extent you're gonna upgrade intensity, this is one of the spots in the township you'd look to do that. You know, so, just from a planning perspective, so. I think I'm on my third master plan now. I'm feeling like really, really old, because these are like long-term and.
Mike, when did we start this process? I remember the board voting.
so we started at the beginning of last year. You know, holidays and summer breaks kind of extended a little bit, a couple months longer than anticipated, but we've done a lot of public participation, and that kind of drove where we are in the process, right? Because we had open houses at the beginning of the year. We didn't want them in the middle of the summer, right? And then we didn't want them during the holidays. So, and John, you've been there. I mean, we had quite a few people at
That was
each
good
one.
turnout,
So,
good turnout
you know, it's
for this sort of thing. You never get great turnout.
But, you know, we got different people for each meeting, which I think is important. You know, we kind of tried to pick the topics that interested people and, you know, push that, you know, as a way to get people to show up to the meeting.
Well, Mike, I wasn't asking about when we started it because how long it took. It's basically just lending affirmation to our residents that what we do here, we take seriously, and we went through the process. Mike has done a great job, the planning commission's done a great job, and, you know, it's gonna be great. I've looked at it, again, from 30,000 feet, but I look forward to, once it's finalized, really going through it before we vote on it, so. All right, are there any questions or comments from the board? All right, hearing none, I need a motion to authorize the distribution of the 2024 Fenton Township Master Plan draft to the public for a 63-day comment period.
So moved.
Support.
All right, motion's been moved and seconded. Any further discussion? Hearing none, Clerk Krug, will you please call the roll?
Yes, I vote yes. Cotrick,
Yes.
Kessler,
Yes.
Reed,
Yes.
Gopel.
Yes.
Tucker,
Yes.
Lorraine,
Yes.
motion passes.
Thanks, Bob. All right, next under new business is the proposed 2024 local road improvement projects. Operations Manager Broker, will you review?
Yes, based on the discussion at the public hearing we had in January, the township requested cost estimates from the road commission for a number of roads. We've received our limestone estimates back, or cost proposals, and one paving project, which is just a paved apron on Hogan Road at Laring. And so we've got those in the packet. The total for, I'm gonna go through the list real quick. Ray Road from Linden to the township line, that would be a shared project, Lundy Township, that is a boundary road. Hogan Road from Lobdell to Silver Lake Road, that's a boundary road with Argentine Township, so that would be a shared project. Hogan Road from Smith to Ray, and Odell from Laring to Linden are two roads that were brought up at the hearing by residents that were deemed suitable for, in need of improvement. And then Jennings from Thompson to Ray. So those are all limestone resurfacings, and then again, the paved apron. I've also included the, find it here, the list, the analysis of the costs. You break down the costs, apply our 50/50 allocation money from the county, and then the participation by the others. These come out, these projects total about $234,000. Our budget's $560, so we've still got quite a bit of budget left to work on. We are waiting for some paving estimates on a couple of roads. Once we have those, we can try to prioritize and allocate the remaining budget for those. But in the meantime, and we've also reviewed these with Lawrence Engineering, the recommendation is to approve these to go forward.
Thanks, Tom. Are there any questions or comments from the board?
Tom, are we doing permazyme on all of the limestone?
The only one that the county is not putting it on is Ray. They said they prefer that one to do a double chloride. They said that's a really high traffic road, and
That's better than the perma?
for whatever reason, they weren't proposing permazyme on that. I'm relying on their expertise. I'm not sure.
That's the one where the residents came in, right?
No, Ray is, well, it actually was, but that was already on the list. But
Yeah.
it was the Hogan one where it was real bad.
Hogan was it there?
The
Okay.
Hogan, the North Hogan section.
Just, there's a new I call it a chemical, I don't know
Yeah,
exactly what it is, but at least based on what the residents were saying, it makes a huge difference on the strength and longevity of the road, so certainly something I think we want to encourage, unless somebody tells me something I don't know.
I'll double check with the engineering department, that's what I was told when I was given the estimates.
I'm not a road expert, so
Yeah.
I would rely on the road experts to tell me what was best, but
I
from what I
will-
was hearing, it sure sounded like, because they were actually comparing their road to a different road that had, unknown to them, had this permazine on it, and they were commenting on how much better it held up, didn't get washboardy, and, et cetera, so.
I'll follow up, and if there's a need to reapprove that one at the next meeting, I can do that.
Okay.
I'll
Worth
check.
checking on, I think.
Trustee Goble?
Yeah, about the railroad, I'm confused where it's at, cause you said Hogan Road is taken care of, but this says railroad from Linden Road to the township line. which-
West,
West, okay.
Yeah.
I didn't see the west on it.
it's, yeah,
So it's Linden to,
from Linden west to the township boundary.
with Argentine.
Argentine and probably Gaines at that point too, I'm not sure.
Okay.
I think they're lined
Guys
up
are
there.
wondering, so. So that intersection of Ray and Hogan, everything there is gonna be covered, or taken care of as far
Yeah,
as.
the area that there was a big concern
Yeah.
at the hearing are, like I said, one of them was already on the radar for this one. And after looking at how long it had been since Hogan Road had been done, it made sense to do that one as well.
All right, any other questions or comments?
I appreciate Mr. Tucker bringing that up though, about the permazine,
It's a great product.
yeah.
And Tom, when you're talking to him, ask him, is it better to have 2 of the chlorides plus the permazine? I mean, if they think the second chloride helps, maybe, and again, I'm not a road dude, so I would ask him that question though. Is it-
The only other thing it could be, because it's a project with Mundy Township, if they don't want permazine, maybe that would fit into it. That wasn't what was said, but just the thought occurred to me.
Well, we'll fix our side of the road and then their residents can yell at them.
But I will find out, and if appropriate, I can bring that one back for reapproval for next meeting.
Any other questions or comments from the board? Hearing none, okay, I need a motion to approve the following local road improvement projects for 2024. This is limestone resurfacing, Ray Road from Linden Road to the township line. And again, as Tom stated, that is in cooperation with Mundy Township. Then there's Hogan Road, Lobdell Road to Silver Lake Road with Argentine Township. Hogan Road, Smith Road to Ray Road, Odell Road, Laring Road to Linden Road, Jennings Road from Thompson Road to Ray Road. Those again are the limestone, and then the asphalt paved apron is Hogan Road at Laring on the south side.
So moved.
Support.
All right, motion's been moved and seconded. Any further discussion? Hearing none, Clerk Krug, will you please call the roll?
Yes. Tucker,
Yes.
Lorraine,
Yes.
Gopel,
Yes,
Kessler,
Yes.
Reed,
Yes,
Cottrell,
Yes,
and I vote yes, motion passes.
Thanks, Bob. All right, next under new business is revised independent contractor agreement, electrical inspector, and revised independent contractor agreement, mechanical and plumbing inspector. We've all reviewed the memo in our packet. We do have our zoning administrator, Mike Deem, here to answer any questions. Is there any comments or questions from the board? Hearing none, okay, I need a motion to approve the independent contractor agreement with Ron Merritt Inspections LLC as presented.
So moved.
Support.
All right, motion's been moved and seconded. Any further discussion? Hearing none, Clerk Krug, will you please call the roll?
Lorraine,
Yes.
Cottrell,
yes,
Kessler,
Yes.
Gopel,
yes,
Tucker,
Yes.
I vote yes, Reed,
yes,
motion passes.
Thanks, Bob. All right, next I need a motion to approve the independent contractor agreement with inspection services by SAH as presented.
So moved.
Support.
All right, motion's been moved and seconded. Any further discussion? Hearing none, Clerk Krug, will you please call the roll?
Kessler,
Yes.
Gopel,
yes,
I vote yes, Reed,
yes,
Lorraine,
Yes.
Cottrell,
yes,
Tucker,
Yes.
motion passes.
Again, thanks, Bob. All right, last under new business is the PEG funding applications for Fenton, Lake Fenton, Linden, and Heartland schools. Operations Manager Broker, will you review?
Yes, so, the PEG funding program is now gotten on a set schedule, so we were doing this at this time last year. The 4 school districts have submitted PEG funding applications along with equipment lists. Those are all included in your packet. And the FACT Consortium has reviewed and approved the applications and recommended approval of funding up to a maximum of $160,401.50. That's the actual total of the applications that were submitted. The allocation is based on the relative amount of PEG fee revenue for the communities. Now, the only exception to that calculation is because Heartland Schools is not part of Fenton Township, or the city of Linden, their applications are always 100% funded by Tyrone Township, and Tyrone Township's share of everything else is reduced by 21%, because that's what they allocate for Heartland. So it's, so anywhere, the township's portion of these is just under $50,000. And the recommendation, as with previous approvals, it's recommended that we approve up to that amount. That way, once they order the equipment, typically prices go down by the time they order, and rather than them having to return money, they just bill what they get. If the prices happen to go up, then they have to cover the difference. So, and also we always want to point out these are funds from the township's restricted fund balance. PEG fees can only be used to support PEG television programming. So based on all that, I would recommend the board approve this.
Thanks, Tom. Are there any questions or comments from the board? All right, hearing none, I need a motion to approve the PEG funding applications of Fenton Area Public Schools, Lake Fenton Community Schools, Linden Community Schools, and Heartland Consolidated Schools, up to a total amount of $49,685.75 as presented.
So moved.
All right, motion's been moved and seconded. Any further discussion? Hearing none, Clerk Krug, will you please call the roll?
Lorraine,
Yes.
Reed,
Yes.
Patrick,
Yes.
I vote yes. Kessler,
Yes.
Gopel,
Yes.
Tucker,
Yes.
motion passes.
Thanks, Bob. All right, moving on to the next business order, which is board comment. Is there anyone on the board that has additional comments or concerns?
One thing,
Yes, sir.
everybody, remember we have early voting for the next 6 days, Tom?
We have 5 more days left.
5 more days. And I promise you, you won't have to fight the crowds.
The actual election, well, that's bad terminology. The open election, when is it, next Tuesday?
Yes.
Yeah. Well, come in, we'll get you through real quick, John.
I gotta write checks anyway, so it doesn't do me any good. I might as well just come next Tuesday, right?
Okay.
There you go. Any other comments?
Nope, I just.
All right. Moving on to the next business order is public comment on agenda or non-agenda items. We will now open up the meeting for public comment on agenda or non-agenda items. And is there anyone here attending tonight that would like to address the board on agenda or non-agenda items? All right. Hearing none, we will move on to Zoom. Is there anybody that's attending via Zoom that would like to address the board on agenda or non-agenda items? If so, you could please unmute and you're free to, is there anybody?
Mr. McKeon says, I've never seen so many geese, sorry, it disappeared. Something about sandhill cranes too.
A lot of sandhills, yeah.
All right. Anybody on Zoom? There it is.
Now we got a different one. Ray Road is heavily traveled.
Okay. Anybody else visiting us tonight on Zoom that would like to address the board on agenda or non-agenda items? All right, hearing none, it's now 7:28 p.m. If there's nothing else, I say good night and the meeting is adjourned.
Good night. Good
Thank you,
job,
everyone.
Everybody.
Under an hour, Jack.
Yep.
It happened.